It already knows it will be hungry tomorrow. Not because it is hungry now, because it simulated a future that does not exist yet and acted on that simulation. That is not instinct. That is not conditioning. That is something science spent decades insisting animals could not do. Cambridge, 2007. A simple experiment. A box with 2 compartments. A California scrub jay is fed in one compartment every morning. In the other, it never receives food. The night before the test, the jay has access to extra food. It can eat as much as it wants or store the surplus anywhere in the enclosure. In the morning, the jay wakes up in the compartment where it never receives food. The night before, it had stored food in exactly that compartment. Not in the compartment where it always eats, in the compartment where it knew that the following morning there would be nothing. Researcher Nicola Clayton and her team repeated the protocol with variations for months. The result held. To do this, the jay needed something science considered exclusively human. It needed to mentally travel to the future, simulate a state of the world that did not yet exist, and act in the present based on that simulation. This has a name: prospective thinking. And until 2007, the dominant hypothesis was that animals did not possess it. What this implies for everything we believed about the boundary between animal mind and human mind is where this video is going. In 1985, psychologists Bischoff and Koller formulated a hypothesis that would become a reference in animal cognition for decades. The hypothesis was this: animals are prisoners of the present. They can learn from the past and react to the present, but they cannot anticipate future needs, disconnected from their current motivational state. In plain language, a hungry animal acts to resolve hunger now, not to resolve tomorrow's hunger. Because tomorrow as a concept does not exist for it. Clayton's 2007 experiment was designed specifically to test this hypothesis, and it was designed to leave no escape route. The critical point: the jays needed to store food when they were not hungry. The behavior depended on the current motivational state, on present hunger. They would not cache food at a moment when they were satiated. They did. Satiated jays that had just eaten stored food for the compartment where they would be hungry tomorrow, not because they were hungry now, because they anticipated being hungry later. The Bischoff-Koller hypothesis did not survive contact with this data. It was not weakened. It was falsified, in the technical sense of the term. The data said it evolved at least twice, by completely different paths. But planning for tomorrow is only the beginning. What the following experiments revealed was harder to contain within any existing hypothesis. In 2007, Cambridge researchers published a second experiment. This time, the question was not whether corvids plan for the future. It was how much that planning costs. The protocol: a corvid receives an immediate reward, food now, or can wait and receive a larger reward later. The results were published in the journal Science. Corvids waited for larger rewards for significantly longer periods than animal temporal discounting models predicted. And they did so consistently, not randomly. They weighed present against future, and in many cases they chose the future. To put this in perspective, human children begin to demonstrate consistent impulse control between 4 and 6 years of age. The corvids tested demonstrated equivalent capacity in specific contexts, without instruction, without progressive reinforcement, as a natural operational strategy. If you have ever watched a crow refuse food and walk away for no apparent reason, you may have witnessed a decision about something that has not happened yet. Tell us in the comments what you saw. Every account is a data point in this investigation. This channel exists for the cases where science has documented something and is still building the language to describe what it is. If this makes sense to you, the subscribe button is right here. The next video inverts everything we have seen so far. What makes this data disturbing is not the capacity itself. It is what it presupposes. To give up something now in favor of something later, you need to mentally represent a future state in enough detail for it to be worth more than the present. You need, in some sense, to believe in the future. And believing in the future requires having a self that will be there to experience it. This is the boundary where the data arrives and language stops, not because science is imprecise, because the territory beyond that boundary has no map yet. In 2012, Schick and Clayton published a review of all experiments on future planning in corvids up to that point. The conclusion was cautious, as science requires. But what was between the lines was less cautious. The data were consistent with the existence of something science calls autonoesis, the capacity to consciously project oneself through time, to experience the past as memory and the future as anticipation, to have, in some sense, a narrative of oneself that extends beyond the present. Autonoesis is what allows you to know that the you of now is the same that was here yesterday and will be here tomorrow. It is the thread that connects experiences through time and creates what we call continuous identity. Schick and Clayton did not claim that corvids possess autonoesis. Science does not assert what it cannot measure precisely, but they documented behaviors that are functionally consistent with it, and that have no simpler explanation available. Having no simpler explanation is, in the language of science, a data point. What remains after all these experiments is a question that biology poses and philosophy is still processing. If a brain architecture completely different from ours, built by an evolutionary lineage separated 300 million years ago, arrived at the same capacities for temporal projection, for planning, for anticipation, what does this say about those capacities? About where they come from? About why they exist? I do not know what it was thinking. Nobody does. But it was expecting something it had planned for this moment, and the moment did not match the plan. For a long time, we lived with a story about time. The story was this: animals live in the eternal present. We do not. That difference was the boundary. It was where the human mind began and the animal mind ended. It was, in some sense, where we began to be us. The Cambridge data did not topple that story entirely, but it created a specific, documented, replicable crack. There is at least one other species that plans for tomorrow, that gives up now to secure later, that acts in the present from a simulation of a future that does not yet exist. What this says about time, about what it means to inhabit time, about who has access to the future and who does not, is still being processed. But there is one implication that is already clear. If perspective thinking evolved independently in corvids, then it is not a human achievement. It is a solution to the problem of existing in a world where the present is never sufficient for survival. The crow on the wire is not waiting for the present. It is already somewhere else. And that place does not exist yet. The next time you see a crow standing still for too long, it is not observing what is here. It is calculating what comes next. If you live near crows, pay attention over the next few days. Watch if any of them stops, stares at a specific spot for too long, then flies directly there, as if the destination had already been decided before departing. Whatever you observe, share it here. Next video, the inverse of grudge. Crows that identify humans who help them and return with objects, with intention. Science has documented the behavior. What it still does not know is what they're trying to buy.